If you guys feel like on the phone that you're not being heard, yell louder and we will stop and hear your point. I can't guarantee that anything that they say will be on the recording that will happen for this meeting, but we'll do our best to paraphrase what they've said as Kathy, Tim, and I see fit since we're here. Tried to make them funnier, but it didn't work. So
pick the good stuff.
Yeah, just pick the good ones. So we just did adjustments to the agenda. We're going to delay the principal's report until Patty arrives. She is at some professional development right now. And I see we have a member of the audience. Do you have anything, Mr. Hillman, to say separate from your summary when we talk facilities?
Other than making a comment on Tim's diet over there, no.
There's plenty of eclairs out in the course room if you'd like to go grab one.
Don't knock it until you try it.
Our filmmaker here just grabbed one, I noticed. So you grabbed a little eclair, that was good. So we have no presentations, we have no audience communication, so we will move to item 5.2, which is the CSSU debrief.
Have you called this meeting to order yet?
Yes, he did.
I did. You were chewing.
Possibly.
So, in the CSSU meeting, there were a couple of big items that we went over, and one was the charge to create the Act 46 committee, which we will get to in action matters later. But the biggest thing from the CSSU debrief is the Vermont Open Meeting Law, which we were given a refresher on. I would encourage Matt Wormser to go to the CSSU packet and read those slides, because you always ask me questions, and I think they're a good reference. That's all I'm saying. Tim was laughing. I don't know why he was laughing. But we're just reminded that not only our school board meetings, but also committee meetings need to be warned 7 days, within reason. 7 days in advance, even if there's less than 3 members of the school board on the committee, the meeting needs to be warned. Be careful about discussing school board business out in public when 2 of your school board members are present. And by be careful, I mean don't do it. The third thing is electronic communications and reply all. And please refrain from discussing items to a reply all when you're doing emails. It's okay to discuss one-on-one with each other, but as soon as you copy somebody else on the board, you have a quorum. I do think that one-way communication is doing announcements to the board and things like that are okay, as long as once that goes out, Matt Wormser, everyone replies individually to the person who sent the email. So, does that address the questions that you've had about that, Matt?
I'm just getting off mute, and I think yes. So,
Okay.
Thank you, Dave, on that.
All right. It's always fun to pick on the rookies. I remember that.
Absolutely.
So the next is the fourth quarter financial management report. And I know we had a discussion about this in our agenda planning meeting. And I know that through careful fiscal management, Patty and Alan and others in the school have managed to come back into the black for the preceding year, which was great. And we appreciate that.
Yeah, actually, pretty proud of that. I think that was, entire staff did some hard work around that.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Big turnaround.
Yeah. I mean, boy, was it hard to get that bad news during budget season.
Yeah.
So, thanks for taking those few years off my life. With that, report to the board, facilities committee, bond article. I think I guess this was an opportunity to discuss, and we'll ask David to come up to a mic and sit with us, to talk a little bit about the work that the Facilities Committee did over the summer and provide the background for what we're going to act on later. We've all heard the large brushstrokes, and we had our meeting in July or August, I can't remember which one, where we did discuss this. There's been 2 Facilities Committee meetings since that time.
Right.
And in those, we've come to an agreement of having 2 articles to vote on. And we have an overall budget right now of about 9.4 million.
Correct.
So, do you, Tim and David, want to just sort of talk about what happened at the last meeting and how we arrived at where we are right now?
Sure. Do you want me to?
Yeah.
Yep, and jump in. So I think in brief, to summarize the last facilities committee meeting that we had, we'd been working towards coming up with budgets for 2 separate bond votes, and actually trying to understand how to actually state those different bond votes on the ballot. And it was getting a little dicey with what the appropriate way was to do that. So a lot of things transpired at the meeting. One was actually a readjustment of those 2 packages. And the suggestion for that realignment came from Alan, from discussing with Dave, that we might want to consider going from a package that had the roof and the windows as one ballot item, and then the D and the E wing renovations in the other item, as the other ballot item. And so it was suggested by Alan that maybe we should just consider doing the roof and the roof only as one ballot item, and then bundling the windows with the D and the E renovations. And the logic behind that, I think, was very good. One is that the roof is very standalone, versus when we had the other way of looking at it. The D and the E wing really had some of the windows, but we weren't pricing it into it, so it was very confusing and not clear-cut how those finances were actually, shaking out. And kind of being a purist, that was a little troubling. So if we break it out so the roof is in one, D and E and windows in the other, they all can stand on their own merits. Either way it votes. I mean, if the community said, no, we don't want to do the roof, but they voted for the D and the E wing, well, it will do the whole D and E wing and the windows, and there it be. The other thing was, brought up by Alan, was that the highest priority at the school is fixing the roof. It's leaking, needs to happen. So by pulling that out on its own merit, that will give the voters the most critical item to look at to approve, not approve. So we had discussions and decided that might be a good way to do it. So after the meeting, Dorn Whittier went back. They were charged with actually revising the budgets accordingly, and they provided that information in the two ballot items that would go forth. I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that, Tim?
No, but I did have a question that came up at a curriculum, which I couldn't answer. In the window package, is that only windows for D&E, or is that windows spread across the whole facility?
It's for the whole facility. So it's the D and the E plus, and I get my sections kind of confused, so I don't know what's the B wing or base of the C wing. C wing.
So that's from the library down to the gym?
Yeah, so it says the whole.
Library down to the band room. That's the wing that has some windows to be replaced still.
But what about the windows in the cafeteria? Are those included as well?
I think those are included also.
Let me look at the diagram real think.
So basically, so you're saying it's all the windows in the building except for that wing that's parallel to
stuff.
School Street,
Except for the
where.
new wing.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
any of the original windows,
Yeah.
any of the
Okay.
1967 windows.
All right.
And do you go over that in the slides when, in the curriculum night?
We
Don't
do,
you show
yep.
those? Yeah, okay,
There's a nice diagram of that.
okay.
So with that, recasting of the scopes, Doran Whittier came up with revised budgets, and I'll hand these out. If you'd like, coming around is the D&E wings plus the windows, followed by the roof only. And you'll see two columns there, and it's just kind of comparison to, where it was previously before we did the change, and then to the final, the dark green columns are the final numbers for changing how we would actually package this. I think looking these over, I think they are reasonably conservative numbers. We still have one remaining issue out there, and that is what to include for hazardous material abatement, asbestos. As you know, there's an assessment going on now by a consultant, and that has been delayed to get that assessment done because, as I understand, they've been having trouble getting roofers scheduled to go in and patch the roof after they actually take their samples. I understood that that was going to be potentially done this week. I'm not sure, Alan, but those numbers haven't come in yet. So these are still carrying the quote $350,000 allowance or contingency for asbestos abatement.
And that would be totally on the roof aspect, or is
No,
that in both?
it's in both, and
Okay.
it's actually partitioned, it's divvied up in each one, so the roof has some, and the D&E wing renovations have some.
Okay, all right.
It would be curious, my thoughts on the roof, I'm actually optimistic and hopeful because my understanding is that that roof was replaced when the addition was put on in the early 90s. And so you'd certainly think that if any abatement had to happen, it would have happened back then. And materials now that you use in construction, generally, there's no asbestos-containing materials that are used. So knock on wood, that's been settled out, so some of those dollars could come down, but they're in here. So as you vote, I think this would be an approval of up to the numbers here, and then if next week we found, ooh, great, we don't have to do that kind of extensive abatement on the roof, those could come down. The D&E wing and the windows, I guarantee you we're gonna have asbestos in there. And the the assessment should give us a handle about what those are gonna be.
Yeah, and I think the language of the articles is, should the school district borrow up to
Yep.
X?
Yep.
So, should be okay
I think that's a
there.
good way to do it.
Yep. All right. I'm satisfied with that. You guys have any questions? No?
So I mean, basically, we're looking at an overall budget just over 9 million
Right.
to do
For the
everything.
two.
9.4 combined,
Or 904, right?
9.4.
9.4.
Yeah.
6.9 and 2.484. So,
Oh, I'm looking at the wrong, I was looking at the 2.1, okay.
yeah.
Dave,
Yeah.
Yes.
in the 9.4, is the 350 for hazmat abatement, is that baked into that?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It is in
So
that.
it's the high end, and that's the high end.
Yes, so, knock on wood, we'll get some relief from some of that contingency or whatever that we put in for abatement that could come down.
Yep. And the other
Is
thing,
there a warranty on that roof, and what would what would determine that? Would that be a 25-year warranty?
I don't know, I mean, typically they're like a 20-year warranty, but I think that would shake out when you actually do the specifications for the roofing that we're gonna do, but typically it'd be like a 20-year warranty.
But isn't a roof warranty typically like a tire warranty? They all
Yeah.
sound really good until you get down to the end.
Yeah, try
And
and
it's all
collect on it.
prorated.
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah.
The last time we had some people who were really questioning the entire roof being done and the materials that it was being done with. Are we going to be able to defend this adequately this time, do you think?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I also think some of those largest critics of the roof cost were on the committee.
Yep, they've been at the
That
table,
helped
so.
go through this process,
Yep.
so,
Good.
yeah.
I mean, I think, you know, hats off to David. I mean, he's really spent a lot of time and scrubbed these numbers and looked at them every which way. And,
Yeah, I think,
you know, and I think it shows. I think, you know,
Absolutely.
he's taken a significant amount of cost out of the project and have not removed a significant amount of scope.
Yep, I think all the numbers are very defendable, and I can get up there and do that, as well as, I'm sure, Doran Whittier or the contractor. You'll always have folks coming in and questioning, but there's, all very defensible.
I think in backing up your words, I think the meeting we had where Doran Whittier did the bottoms-up estimate, and then you did the square footage top-down estimate.
Right.
And the numbers came
Kinda
to
came-
within 100,000
Yeah.
of each other on a
Yep.
scale of 9 million. So I thought that was a good way to cross the Ts and check the Is, so appreciate that. So we will take this information and move forward with it. Keep looking at the CSSU. Got it. We'll put that in, we'll take this as background when we go to action matters in
Okay.
a few minutes. So I guess, I don't mind just continuing on into discussion matters, and we'll come back to the principal's report. Is that all right, Alan?
Yeah, looks fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll move to 6.1, discussion matters, policy. We have a number of policies up for discussion this month. A large number of them are federally mandated policies that we cannot change at all, but they're here for your information. Does anyone have any issues with any of the policies?
No.
No? Okay. 6.2, Act 46, the merger committee. So we had a report to the board from Colleen McKinnon during the CSSU meeting, where they've gone through some discussions over the summer in 2 meetings about Act 46 and what we should do. Thanks, David. What we should do for the merger in the future. Have you all received any of those minutes? Have you seen them?
I have not.
I can forward them on if you guys haven't seen them,
I have
if you're
not.
interested.
Yes, please.
But basically, the committee's recommended that we form a formal merger committee, and we need 3 people from Shelburne to participate. And this will be the study that leads to, should we consolidate or should we not? Russ Caffrey has volunteered to be on the committee.
Oh, good.
Which I think is great, as a recently retired board member. Shelburne gets 3 people, and Joan Lennis would like to be one of them.
Good.
So that leaves the 5 of us here to discuss if one of us would like to go. I know Bob has said he's not willing to, he's not able to do it because of the schedule. It's going to be very front-loaded in this fall, probably twice a month meeting. So, does anybody have any wishes to be on this committee?
Do we need a board member on?
I think we should have
Okay.
a board member on. If we're having Russ on it, I think we should have another member on it. I haven't heard whether or not Matt's interested. I think I saw Kathy shaking her head.
I'll say I'm certainly interested. I'm just likewise very concerned about, time commitments with my travel schedule and some of the bond vote, work and that we'll be needing to do.
Yep.
I mean, I can, you know, if we need somebody, I can do it.
Yeah. And It would be nice, maybe if you and I could job share.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I
I
mean,
wouldn't
I'm
mind
happy
doing
to.
that, and we could share what happens at each meeting and discuss with the other. So, I'll put myself in, and then I'll say that you're the alternate, and you can, so that'll be fine. I don't think there's anything else with that. The 6.3 budget buddies.
Do we need, I mean, Dave doesn't need to stay unless he enjoys the meeting, right?
Well, unless he wants, I guess my assumption was that he would stay until we went into the discussion of the bond vote.
Yep, that's fine.
Okay.
But you don't have to, I guess you don't have to if you don't want to.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll be up all night wondering whether you approved it or not.
Now,
We can give you
Go
a
home and
call.
watch it on TV.
yeah. Now you can call Channel 22 and be like, I know the answer. So, let's see, budget buddies. This is a call to raise our awareness of who might be a good budget buddy, and to go out and find some folks in the community who could help us.
Have we lost Randy Sweeney because of her son's going off to CVU?
Yeah, so, I mean, usually that was the co-chairs of the PTO.
Yeah,
So
okay.
maybe Don Fragiola would be there along with Courtney. We usually try to recruit one teacher.
Mhm.
Who did we have last year? Can't remember.
Eric and/or Deadfield County Development.
Yeah,
John Madden
we had Eric,
Mm.
and then we had Annie Dunn. as
John
well.
Madden has been in the past.
Yeah. And then community members,
Alice Brown has always, seems to be involved.
yeah.
She may still be. Was Ellen Matthews? No,
It
the,
was Ellen.
Fran
This
was.
is
Fran.
So I guess if, go out in the next month, and if you see folks that you might want to be on the committee, definitely sell them on being budget buddies.
I always ask in curriculum night as well.
Yep, that's true. And Bob, you had a friend who was on the committee last year, who was on the budget, who was a budget buddy.
Right, John Harris.
Yeah,
I don't know if you want to see if he'd be interested again, I'd be happy to ask him.
yeah, ask him if he'd be interested in doing it again, because it's always great recruiting folks who are previous members. They learn a little bit every time, so you could ask him, and we'll just correspond in the next month.
Also,
We have plenty of time.
remember the time for the meeting has changed, right, to 4 p.m,
Yeah.
which
Meeting-
may impact some people's
Yep.
ability.
Yep. Yeah. So, all right. So for the next one, 6.4, boards corners. I think the next article for the boards corner might be just a summation of the summer of facilities committee work and a presentation for the vote. Does anybody have any opposition to that?
No, I think that's
I think that's a
appropriate.
great idea. I think the more information, the sooner,
Yeah.
the better.
Yeah, and I think I was on a phone call with Matt Wormser earlier this week where he said he would write that.
The connection's getting a little fuzzy on here. Can you repeat that?
So I think that was a yes.
I think that was a
Matt
yes,
saying yes.
that's right. No,
Happy to, sounds good.
yeah, okay. Well, you just got us back. That was good. I actually believed you for a second there. So that'll be good. That'll be a good next article. And then we'll go forward from there. So we'll move into 7.0 action matters. So that was a good segue, Kathy, on, so the board work plan, you were talking budget schedule, but board work plan, that's been laid out. Anybody have any,
Do you
Could
know
I get
what
a
page
motion?
that is on our,
pardon?
do you know what page that is, so I can scan to it on the,
59 and 60.
thank you.
So could I get a motion to approve the board work plan for 15-16?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
Any discussion?
No, looks good.
Yeah, okay. All right, so all those in favor of the board action, board work plan for 15 and 16?
Aye.
Any those opposed? Okay, motion carries. Also in your packet is the budget assumptions page.
Right.
Which came out, I was in the budget committee, that we went through and discussed this. Thought Bob had pretty defensible reasons for everything he has in there. So could I get a motion to approve the budget assumptions?
So moved?
Second.
Any discussion on the assumptions?
Dave?
Yep.
One point, once again, I tried to get Bob on the cell phone when I was listening in at CSSU meeting, but I would still look to get some kind of clarification on that high number that the school is getting billed for the kilowatt hour. First, and as you said correctly, that's a Public Service Commission or something like that.
Yeah, the Public Service Board sets that rate, and
I really think that Bob, in behalf of all the members of the CSSU community, ought to be filing some kind of an appeal, because for the schools to be paying 14% higher than the highest
Wow.
residential rate, there's something that doesn't make sense there.
okay. Now that's sort of a basic utilities and, part of the operations budget sort of question. So, I know what you're saying. I don't think that impacts the operating assumptions for next year's budget, but I'll pass that on to Bob when I see him after this meeting, that you want to follow up on that.
That would be great.
Okay.
Because I did not reach him in that CSSU meeting.
Okay, yep. All right, so all those in favor of any other discussions? Any? No, all those in favor of the assumptions?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. So 7.3 budget calendar, and so could I get a motion to approve the budget calendar?
So moved?
Second.
Okay, Bob seconds. The biggest changes, we've moved to Tuesday afternoons at 4 o'clock, so that we have a more open-ended forum towards the end of the meeting. We're always, when we have our early morning meetings, they always end quickly, and I thought this would be a better way to have more detailed discussion. Any discussion?
So that's every other week, is that correct? That's what it looks like on here, beginning the second week of December?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just, if there's going to be an issue with the December 22nd meeting, could you guys just kind of think about that relative to your holiday schedules and let me know? I think the last day of school is that Tuesday. But if we're going to have trouble getting a quorum for that meeting, but just
Dave,
yeah.
can we participate remotely and still fulfill a quorum?
Yeah, we can.
That's great.
Okay. As long as my battery holds out.
I'll
Okay.
get you a charger.
Right, I was gonna say.
That'll get you a solar charger.
Yeah, there we go. That'll work well right now.
Notice will-
So all those in favor of the budget calendar?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. And we go to 7.4, which is appoint one member to the healthcare committee. I believe Bob has spoken to me about that.
I think
And,
that's me.
okay, so could we get a motion to appoint Bob to the healthcare committee?
So moved?
Second?
All right. Any discussion? No? All in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. 7.5, could we affirm that the Can we get a motion to affirm the 3 members to the merger committee are Joan Lennis, Dave Connery with an alternate Tim Williams, and
Russ
Russ
Caff-
Cafferty?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Any discussion? No? And we will, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. And item 7.6, the public forum date. So, Alan, I think we had talked a little bit about this.
We swapped a couple of dates earlier.
This is the budget forum?
Yeah, this would be the
Oh, not the facilities, okay.
Yeah,
So
I
we
was
had
going to
the
ask what
initial
public,
budget
which,
forum, which we had been talking about sometime in November.
Early November is what we talked about, that we thought that would be fine. Typically, we've done it around the PTO meeting, which is Tuesday, 11:10,
Yeah,
so.
I think that's pretty reasonable, because then we can separate the budget forum from
It's
anything
after, yeah,
from the bond vote. So,
so would that be 7 PM on 11:10?
yeah, is that okay? Sound good?
11:10, 7 PM. Yep.
Okay. So we'll,
That's the budget public forum.
yeah, and that's before the budget process, what are your hopes and dreams and disappointments with our budget? So,
Also, perhaps recruiting some more budget buddies at that time for those any people who might show up.
right.
Mhm.
That's
And
true.
I'm sorry, what time again?
That's how we got.
7 o'clock. That's how we got David Hillman on our facilities committee.
That's right.
Remember that?
I remember that.
Showed up in his gray UVM sweatshirt.
And the location will be cafeteria?
Probably did.
It'll be somewhere in the school. We can,
Yeah, okay.
so. All right, so we'll move to 7.7, which is to approve the facilities bond article. And I'm going to go to an email I received from Bob Mason on how to word this motion. And, oh man, don't even tell me. Okay,
And we have the wording for the articles?
They were working through the attorney on that, right?
so the articles should be,
They're way at the end of the packet.
they're at the end of the packet. But what I'd like to do is, could I get a motion to approve the resolution certificate, a warning for public hearing, a warning for special meeting to vote articles, and the form of the ballot and borrowing of term of 30 years?
Okay, so we decided 30 years for a bond.
We're gonna start with 30 years, and then as our discussion goes, we can amend this.
Oh, okay.
But I'd like to put a motion forward to put 2 articles on the ballot for a total of $9.4 million.
So we're gonna vote on a 30-year, and then in discussion, we'll,
So we're gonna put a motion forward, and then if you want to amend the motion before we vote, we can do
Got
that.
it.
Just from a mechanics standpoint.
got it.
So are we looking right now at Article 1 and 2?
Yeah,
It says 1,900,000, but that's a different number than we have for roofing replacement
right.
here.
So those numbers are probably just not updated based on the last few days, so it's gonna be 2.4 and 6.9.
Okay, I want to make sure I'm
So we.
proving something that's,
Yep, so we're gonna amend the motion, so it's going to be 2 articles, one for the roof of 2.484 million dollars, and Article 2 for D&E wing and windows for a total of $6.925 million.
yep.
This is the motion that's forward.
Mm-hmm. So moved.
Okay, can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, so discussion.
So,
Dave,
go ahead, Bob.
I'm sort of taken aback by the 30-year. Matt and I had looked at what the 20-year effect was, and it didn't look that bad. And I'm concerned about the interest payments, the total. We pay so much less in total interest on a 20-year bond than on a 30-year bond.
Yeah, and I guess the concept here was to just see if people are more willing to reduce the yearly tax impact to town taxpayers by putting it out over 30 years, or would you be more concerned in lowering the overall payment over the term and having a 20-year bond and having a higher cost per year?
Well, I did the numbers, and on a 20-year bond, and I've revised them for the $2.4 million for the roof.
Yep.
But that would be a net annual tax impact of $63. And then for $7 million for 20 years, I come up with a tax impact of $188, which
Per 100,000?
That's not bad.
Okay.
Neither of those is bad.
Okay.
And the net effect of going to 30 years is, it doesn't reduce it by that much. But the interest payments really do go up a lot.
So, can I take a stab at that, Bob? So,
Yeah.
My thinking on it is a couple pieces. One is fundamentally whether that's a good deal or a bad deal compares, relates to what else you're going to do with that money. So, one thing I heard from the survey we did very much was like, look, I'm all for making the school a better place, but the taxes have been raising too fast in recent years, and this is just one more thing that is really escalating tax rates. And my perspective is, going to 30-year has another 20% reduction over and above the principal reductions, and it's something we should really actively consider. So absolutely, it has a higher 30-year interest rate, but it really does provide tax relief relative to the alternative for the first 20 years, which is a non-trivial change. I think the other factor is, am I, as an individual taxpayer, better off? So let's say I stay in my same house for the next 30 years. Is my money, am I getting a good deal or a bad deal paying this off over 20 years or 30 years, knowing that I'm going to be paying more interest overall? So the assumption is, relative to putting money in the savings account where you're getting effectively 0% interest, it's a bad deal. But if I were to do one of two things, if I were to pay down student loans or pay down credit card debt, I'm absolutely getting a higher return paying down my other interest things. Or if I invest, if I use that money and put it in my 401k, absolutely positively I'm better off having lower tax rates for the first 20 years and paying it off that way. So, my thinking really is twofold. One, it helps us answer the question, what are we doing to minimize the impact to taxpayers for at least the first 20 years? And secondly, again, is it still a good idea, even though I know I'm paying high interest rates? And the answer from my standpoint is, for me individually, yes, because either I'm using that to pay down other forms of interest, or I'm investing in the market, in which case, in both cases, I'm really getting, coming out ahead, at least from my perspective.
I mean, just kind of as a follow-on to Bob's comment, I mean, I think there's a fundamental shift the way people think about debt now, as opposed to 10 or even 20 years ago. When we're at, we'll never be at a lower interest rate than what we are right now. And so I think when people are thinking in terms of mortgage, they're thinking 15 years, 20 years. And I think if we go out with a 30-year note, it's it's $2.5 million more in interest. And I think, taxpayers might just, not be good with that. As a consumer, I don't know a lot of people going out, stretching it out 30 years, they're all going less. And I think for $50 difference, to retire the debt, 10 years earlier is, I think if you're for the project, you're gonna do it at 252, and you're probably gonna do it at 200. I don't see a big difference in that. So why spend the extra couple million in interest and, burden with another 10 years of debt? That's my 2 cents.
From another perspective, let's just say only the roof portion passed. And we have to go back and we have to ask for windows and D and E. How are the taxpayers going to look at the first bond and the number of years and how much their taxes have increased versus the second? I mean, remember, these are 2 articles that people are looking at. We're still thinking all together, right? I mean, these numbers, we're looking at the whole shooting match. We're not looking at one article only.
And I think just a follow-on to that is that, people, I kind of lost my train of thought though, are looking, let me come back to it.
Okay.
Well,
Could I make a comment?
My concern about interest, and I get the point about opportunity cost, Matt, but interest doesn't do anything for our students. And to pay, to commit the community to pay, $2.5 million in interest for an extra 10 years of mortgage, and just to reduce maybe $50, in tax. It doesn't make sense to me. You can do an awful lot of good for people with $2.5 million rather than just pay it in interest.
And Bob, I am entirely sympathetic to that. My reason I'm very supportive of the 30-year option, the 20-year option, is really, we had a vote on this in March, and thanks to Dave Hillman and the like, they've done a lot of great scrubbing of the numbers, and we are 16% below what failed in March. And my perspective is, we as a committee need to be very sensitive to, doing whatever the heck we can do to say, we have really made an effort to minimize the impact on taxpayers, and just from a real-time, current-time affordability standpoint. So, I am supportive. I was supportive of the 11.2 million option. Over 20 years, I'm supportive of whether it's a 20 or 30-year option for the 9.4. But, when I really want to do our best to have it be something that the broadest spectrum possible, Shelburne taxpayers can be supportive of, and the proposal around 30 years is just, in light of that. So, that's, it's my thinking of it anyway. And I'll say, I have a 15-year mortgage too. And when it comes to my personal stuff, I'm very sympathetic to writing down, debt as quickly as I can, certainly.
Okay, David?
Yeah, I just want to comment, I'd be especially careful of the roof article, because if you bond that over 30 years, generally, you might exceed the life of that roof with that 30 years. A roof, they warranty it 20 years, and generally roofs, when they get 20 years old, they're at their end of life, so I don't think you'd want to be paying like a car payment on a car that no longer runs. So be careful with that one. It's essentially like depreciation. You don't depreciate anything past its useful life.
Yeah, and I think there was I think at one point we had thought the roof would go longer than 20. And you're saying
they
maybe
can,
not.
but
Yeah.
My other comment was that we were always talking before about the bond that's really falling off. And, when I look at this, project broken up into two buckets, I mean, the bond that's falling off basically will pay for the roof. So, with no impact to taxpayers. So I think that's a better discussion point when we're out talking to the, people to try to get their support. Say, look, if you want to support, this is how you support. You vote both. It's just almost like an operational expense. I look at the roof. So I mean, I guess I would like to make an amendment to your motion to amend it to be a 20-year term over a 30-year term.
Okay.
I agree with that.
I'm fine with that. I
So
don't
then-
have a
so
really strong
Somebody's gotta
feeling for
second it,
30.
and-
So Bob, you're making you're agreeing with the motion.
Okay.
Could I get a second to make this amendment?
I second
I'll
that.
second that.
Okay, you can't make the motion and second, Bob. But, all right, so any further discussion on amending the motion and making the term 20 years? No? So all those in favor of making it 20 years?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Okay, Matt is opposed. So, motion carries 4-1. So the motion as it stands now is to have two articles. First article for the roof for $2.4 million. And the second article for the D&E wing and the windows for $6.9 million, thereabouts. The details will be in the articles, over a term of 20 years. Is there any further discussion on the, putting these two articles on the ballot for the November election? No? Okay, all those in favor of putting these on the ballot?
Aye.
Aye.
All those
Aye.
opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Unanimous.
So,
Good job.
thank you very much. David, thank you
Good.
so much
Yes.
for all your work.
Fabulous.
Appreciate it.
Welcome.
Absolutely, David. Thank you so much.
Item 7.8 is the Novus Solar Net Metering Agreement. We met, so you get a motion to approve the solar net metering agreement?
Did we see that agreement? It's a little bit hard to approve the agreement
Okay.
when I haven't read it.
Yeah, so there are a few last changes that are coming in. You guys haven't seen the agreement that
Nope.
came from Bob? Okay, so maybe we should wait. We'll have to wait on this. Okay, we don't have enough information.
No.
So we won't act on the solar net metering.
Can I discuss that just for one moment, Dave?
Yeah,
I know that we are very tight from a Novus needing a decision standpoint. So my concern is that if it pushes past the end of the month, that it's basically a lost opportunity for us.
yeah.
So
And I understand that, but in defense of that, Novus sent changes to the agreement today to our
understood.
attorney, so, since we've been working on this for about a month, and they sent changes today, I mean, they're just gonna have to be flexible and talk to us in October.
I mean, we can warn a special meeting.
And we
to-
could do
Right.
that too.
Act
And
on
I'll go back and make sure that you guys get the information in time. And perhaps we could meet quickly in 2 or 3 weeks before the end of September and make this happen.
Mhm.
Okay?
If Novus is not going to change their date, then I think we should do that.
Right. So we'll approach that from both ways. Good advice. Okay. So we will,
That sounds great. I'm comfortable. I just wanted to make sure that I know their project, and I'm not here to do Novus's bidding here, but I know that there are true constraints they're working with them related to the national financing perspective or the project incentives and that sort of thing. So I just we need to be sensitive to their, real timelines, not their arm twisting to make it happen.
Got it.
But I mean, they need to get their stuff to us in a timely fashion.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't send it to a lawyer today and expect to get a positive vote on it tonight.
Yeah.
That's just not real
Well, I
world.
know. No, I understand that, Tim, but, I think the reality was our lawyers were the holdup. We got them something, within the past week. And so, if not even sooner. So I think that the holdup has been more on our lawyer's side than theirs, to be honest. Again, not to do their bidding, we just need to be sensitive on time. That's all.
Yeah, and I think we're willing to be flexible and do something before the next meeting, and,
That's
we'll
totally great
okay.
by me, fine.
All right.
Very fine by me.
So item 7.9, that was removed from the agenda because we combined 7.7 and 7.9. So if we could we'll just do the consent agenda, and then we'll go straight to the principal's report. And Jeff, if you could just notify Elaine that we're about 10 minutes or 5 or 10 minutes from going into executive session. For the consent agenda, I do want to make clear that 8.3 policies for adoption and repeal, the 3 policies that are being repealed have all been combined into policy 41, which is a single investigation method to determine what sort of event happened, rather than 3 separate investigation methods which predetermine what event actually happened. So the same investigation could yield whether something was harassment, hazing, or bullying, and not just pursuing, oh, this must be a bullying issue. So this is tightening up the investigation of a particular event at school with a more consistent policy. Have I stated that properly, Alan and Patty? Is that right? So could I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so with that, we will go back to 5.1, which will be the principal's report, and we'll turn it to Alan and Patty. I lost my internet connection, so I'm glad you have.
There you go, perfect, perfect. I didn't kill that little tiny piece of a tree in vain, huh?
Yeah. Well, the
Awesome.
tree was probably killed 2 pieces of paper ago, so it's okay.
True. So, what a great start to our school year it was. I just think that things went wonderfully. We've worked really hard as a school climate committee team, a number of us over the last, about 6 months, I'd say, starting last school year. And as you can see here from our school-wide everyday expectations, we have kind of retooled what we had for responsive classroom for a number of years. And you can see all sorts of these everyday expectations, we call them, which are really what do we expect students and adults to look like, behave like when they're in various locations within our school, and how do we treat each other in a really safe, respectful, and responsible manner. And the kids are doing an awesome job. Today, I have to say, I was in the lobby area, and our middle school students, who sometimes are rather ravenous when it's lunchtime, and historically have kind of, I don't know, they just go really quickly through that lobby area to get down to the cafeteria, understandably, but man, I watched them today behind the glass, and they just were so awesome. I have to say, I was absolutely thrilled. So anyway, kudos to everybody. About 12 people are on that committee, and they represent pretty much factions of the entire school, so that was really wonderful.
Including students.
Not on the committee, no, I don't
Okay.
think so. I think, no, I'm sorry, but you know what, Kathy, that's a great idea. Maybe we should think about doing that. That's a really good idea, I like that.
I do want to say, we're at what, not 15th day of school?
15th, yep, yeah.
Yes, 15th day of school, and over the weekend, I was called out by my kids for not being safe.
Nice, I like that.
Yes.
They're learning, that's
Yeah.
great.
So,
Thank you for sharing that.
I will no longer be riding my bicycle in the breezeway.
Ah.
So,
That's great, I love
I'll
it.
send you to see our new planning and director.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. And we have two now, so it's really helpful.
But has this sort of changed the way the planning room is used? Is it sort of a change, like, is it sort of
Yep.
bringing it down to the kids' level
It's
more
trying to be
so?
much more proactive.
Okay.
So our, we have two planning room directors now, so they're co-directors. Yaz Sherman was employed by us, over the summer, and Rachel Oberst, who's been there for a year, so she had taken Georgine's place.
Okay.
And the two of them now really deploy themselves into classrooms much more. They have the ability to do that because with two of them, they're kind of able to tag, and if they need to go into the planning room, they can. But we really want it to be a proactive place to use skills, and they're in Kiva's a lot, so.
Great.
I hear the language at home of being respectful,
Awesome.
which
Awesome.
I was very impressed about.
That's great. I'm
Yeah.
really happy to hear that. And you know all about our playground. Our playground is wonderful. Hopefully you've seen all the news, pictures of our celebration that we had. Was it the first Friday? Yeah, it was, right? The first Friday that we were back, and we had the drone camera take pictures, and it's been in the Shelburne News, and, so I think that there's been a
Only the
little bit,
Shelburne News would not report a new playground, they would report a drone photographing a new playground.
Well, but it was great. So we had this great celebration. I have to say that the students just were awesome. So we had all 800 students, adults, everybody out on that new playground 3 days into school, and everybody was safe, respectful, and responsible, so it was great. A couple kids were up on the high areas, but that's okay. We got them down. But as you can see there, I've got some of the highlights of the finances. I think the exciting part is, since I wrote this about a week ago, we have signed the grant. Thank you, Dave.
Yeah,
So we
that's
signed
good.
all the grant paperwork, and now we'll be able to pay all those bills for the phase 1 of the playground. So phase 1 is pretty much complete, and now we're working toward phase 2. The big thing right now is the fit stations that are going to be put in, which are on the peripheral of the play area, the entire play area, and the vegetation, some pieces of vegetation. So, and I just have to one more time say that Tim's wife is remarkable. She is, I don't know what she's going to do for her next job, but
Hopefully something that pays.
It was very interesting during installation to hear the other side of Lisa's fundraising from the playground installer, and
oh, yes.
all the
Yes.
things that she got for free.
Oh,
by-
she's amazing.
He was like, well, I've had this in the warehouse for a
Yeah.
certain amount of time and nobody wants it, so how about this? And
Yeah.
that's how we got one of our climbing walls, so it was like, wow, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Oh, she's
Yeah, that was
amazing.
great.
I mean, we don't have time right now, but
No.
sometime when you have time, I'll tell you all the unbelievable things she did.
Well, the next one's mine. You might remember last year we talked about hypothetically that we'd be rolling out our Tarrant Institute 3-year grant. It is in place, rolling forward. The first piece, one requirement we had was going one-to-one with Chromebooks for every middle school student, which I think we've been really successful in doing so far. So, if you happen to walk through, you'll see technology in every student's hands, although as I answered to a curriculum night tonight, that doesn't mean that we're just living on computers. In fact, in a lot of cases, maybe less so, because all it means is we're able to use the technology when we need it rather than trying to schedule it and then feeling like we better use it for all 60 minutes because we may not get it again for 2 weeks. So it's showing up everywhere. I think you're going to hear a lot about that over the next 3 years, because really the focus is moving us forward in standards-based learning, e-portfolios, PLPs, a lot of the X77 work. And the Tarrant Institute has been phenomenal in terms of their support. We had a professional development coordinator at a meeting, actually 2 of them at a meeting with Jeff and myself and another consultant this morning, kind of helping plan our year-long professional development, and then back again with us at our faculty meeting after school, pretty much on call when we need them. So it's fantastic. And then on the back of that page, I guess I'll just take one last chance to say some goodbyes to some folks that worked for us last year. That's why we have some new names here. So as you may know, John Straza has stepped down, so we have a new special ed director, Don Gruss, who stepped in. Ellen Matthews has retired, and Jeffrey Vidillo has stepped in as our technology integrationist. David Southworth retired. We've added Diana Rich, who's a middle school social studies teacher. Erica White took a position with UVM, so we have Peter Boardman, a new K-5 art teacher. Pat Wilder stepped down as our Howard social workers, so we have added Laurel Robbins, and then we got Pat back to work in our Imagine After School program. And then throughout the building, we've added some other folks there, and we just welcome, and it's been a really strong school start. So we miss the folks that we had to say goodbye to, but also really excited about those that have replaced them.
And then you can see, we just, for the beginning of the year for everybody, we've given this grid out that has the names of the teams, the grades that they represent, the teachers on the team, the team paraprofessionals, special education paraprofessionals. Again, that's just to kind of help you, so in case you can't remember what team you're on, Dave, not that that would ever happen, but if you can't remember which team your kids are on, it's right there. And it is hard because, they flop back and forth, those first and second and fourth and fifth grade teachers, so that can be a bit challenging. And then just rounding it off with current school enrollment, you can see there that maintained the 13, 14, beginning of the year, 15, end of the year, and then you can see our numbers in September. We do report out our early partnership numbers now. So that's a new column, just to let you know, and that's our students who are Shelburne students, but enrolled in our preschool programs, because they count from a financial standpoint, so.
So is that the number that's already been multiplied times 0.4? Or is that?
Yes.
That is, okay.
Yes.
So there are 93 divided by 0.4 kids in Shelburne that are in.
They're in our
In
early learning
early learning.
partnership program.
So, do you understand? Did you hear that?
Mhm.
You did, okay.
Mhm, yep. And that, of course, is a couple of years, so that
Yeah.
wouldn't represent, necessarily students coming into kindergarten next year,
Yeah.
because they're over a 3 to,
Right.
or
It can
2
cut,
to
it could be anything,
5.
yeah.
Right, exactly,
Yeah.
yep.
And I'd love to point to the final column here, which has 774
74.
kids.
Of course, not counting those 93.
Not counting
Right,
the
right, right.
93,
Not
I
counting
know,
those,
and it
yeah.
doesn't even, the 774 doesn't even count the 15, if I'm not mistaken.
I think it does,
It
actually,
does?
now. Yep.
Okay, but even so,
But the
to
70,
lose,
50,
to
60.
lose 5 triple E kids, but to still gain 18 in your overall
Right.
Numbers.
enrollment, our enrollment continues to grow, and the small sample size of my neighborhood and the large sample size of the numbers here, and I know that there's an article out today on WCAX which talks about mergers, and the only picture in the merger is the graph of class size since 1990, which we have that graph if you look at 1990 to 2008, but it's been growing and staying pretty consistent, so it's good.
But Dave, you have your work ahead of you with 95 eighth graders graduating. You're gonna have to do a lot of recruiting over the summer to hit your
do some
number
work
next
there.
year.
I don't know, I got 2 pairs of twins that are 4 in my neighborhood,
There you
so,
go.
there you
Ooh,
go.
Doing your part right
that's
there.
Yeah, so that is it. So I think, is that the end of our principals report?
Yes.
Okay,
Any questions?
no?
No,
You guys?
sounds good.
It's
Very
great.
good.
So we are going, so with that, we're going to go into executive session, and Elaine's not here yet, so,
She was going to start with Heinsberg because they finished slightly ahead of you.
Okay.
But she anticipates that to be a very quick one.
okay. So Elaine is going to be a few minutes. Do you want me to call you guys back when we go into executive session?
I don't, are we allowed to be connected that way in an exec session? I'm not sure that we can.
No?
I don't know.
That would be a question for
I
Elaine.
don't need to be in it.
You don't want to, okay, all right, that's fine. So you guys want to, you want to, okay, thanks very much, folks. Have a
Good
great
night,
night.
guys.
Safe
Night.
travels.
Thanks a lot, Dave.
Bye-bye.
Appreciate it, guys. Thanks. Bye.
Okay. And do you need us for executive?
No,
I
I don't believe so.
No,
Okay.
think so.
Oh, do you? I don't know.
no, I don't.
I asked if they
Yeah,
needed
that's
any of
simply
us, and
only by
I
invite.
asked
Yes,
them, and
we're
I
only
think
inviting.
Elaine
Yeah.
said they wouldn't need us.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, So you're done. So we're gonna go into executive session and then we will come out